Hi, welcome to DIY, Do-It-Yourself Bestseller with your hosts, Justin Popovich, and on the line with me,
Bob Vila,
welcome, Bob. No, it's not. Come on.
Brad
Smarten up.
Goss.
It is Brad
Smart enough,
Goss.
smart enough, he says to me.
How's that for a product intro? Hope you're ready for this. You're in for a treat today. And basically we're going through a series of 10 steps, 10 videos, 10 lessons on how you can do it yourself, how you can become a bestseller, a published author, and do it all yourself. And we're going to build it from the ground up using basically the system that my guest here today, Mr. Brad Goss, used in his bestseller book launch, and the process we've been using with our clients as well. And I think you're going to find it enlightening and interesting. And if you're ready, Brad, I think we can just dive right in to video number one.
Let's do it.
You're born ready, you said, right?
I'm born ready.
All right. Well, before we get into the actual chapter heading or the title of this first lesson, let's just lay the groundwork here. You've read the sales letter, you know what you're getting into, but at the end of these 10 videos, we want to give you the best opportunity at not only publishing your own book, but making your book very, very successful, and so that it becomes something that you can use in your business for a long time to come, whether you choose to go the personal branding route, which we're going to strongly recommend you do, but even if you don't, you have something beyond just a book, and you're not just looking at this as a form of, oh, a form of revenue. I'm going to get this book done and make some money on the book. That's not the point of this, is it, Brad?
No, no, not at all. In fact, your book is not really a vehicle for me. I mean, it makes money, but I don't. There's very few authors that are making millions of dollars from book royalties.
Exactly. It's just going to be part of a much larger process. And we're going to get into that in one of the future lessons. So just wanted to lay that foundation. The first lesson, and every lesson is going to be a question in itself, and we're going to spend each video answering the question in a variety of ways. But the first lesson slash question is, you want to define who is your audience, who is your buyer. Before you even publish or begin writing the book, you want to answer this question and really know the answer inside out. And why don't we actually start by me turning around and asking you, Brad, when you had that discussion with yourself or any of your advisors when you're preparing your book, how did you look at that? How did you kind of examine who your audience was going to be, who your buyer was going to be in the grand scheme of things, and use that as a framework?
Well, for me, I actually, and a lot of people will do this. You'll hear the whole exercise. You have to define your customer avatar. If you've heard that before, you're not alone. I had heard that as well. And in fact, one person had said you only need to define one customer. And I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that we're going to have multiples. I think there is going to be one perfect client. And then outside of that, there might be two or three others. And if you can define two or three people, it's even better, because then you can look at them, on the whole and say, okay, these three people all share these exact traits in common. For me, my customer avatar for my book, The Chronic Marketer, was a male, 30 to 40 years old, either work from home entrepreneur, full-time or part-time. Meaning they could have a day job and they could be doing some entrepreneurial stuff on the side, or they're full-time entrepreneur trying to raise their game. Pothead.
That helps.
Yeah. Not necessarily every single, again, not every customer falls into this avatar. A lot of people buy my book. They don't smoke pot, right? It's not a prerequisite for owning my book, but you obviously either have to be one or have a cool sense of humor about it to want to buy a book like that. So you have to define who this person is. Where do they live? What TV shows do they watch? For me, there's a TV show called Weeds. I don't think you watch it, but you don't watch a lot of TV. Claire and I download Weeds. It's a show about a woman whose husband dies and she starts dealing drugs in her suburban neighborhood. You can kind of start to really lay out, hey, okay, I think this person watches these shows and listens to these bands and watches these movies and likes these periodicals. right? Figure out all of those things, like narrow your person down to a T. And you're going like, it's hard to think through because you're going to be wrong some of the time, and that's okay. But just define that in your own head. Who is that person? Because once you start, getting into some of the things we're going to talk about in future videos, it gets important to know who that person is.
Yeah, and I think that this is a marketing discussion that goes even beyond writing or publishing a book. When you're creating a service or a product of any kind, you want to go into that knowing ahead of time what the book's going to be. I remember hearing stories of various famous marketers who would run marketing campaigns and tests before they even wrote a book, just to see if the headline would convert on that topic, and if there was, if there was enough interest, they'd go ahead with it, and if not, they wouldn't. And that's a perfect example of knowing your market, and more specifically knowing your buyer. In a lot of the cases, if you're listening to this now, you're probably a business owner, even if it's only part-time. You've probably already dealt with people, and you've received questions, and you can kind of feel yourself gravitating towards certain customers, certain clients, and you can narrow in on the ones that fit you the best. I know in my business, I've sold thousands and thousands of products and downloads to different people, but I can probably count on one or two hands the number of people that I would, could really relate to, and could see them as my customer avatar. So just start with your own experiences and look into that and say, yeah, here's somebody who's bought from me many times in the past, and they really are the perfect fit. And how that relates to your book is when you start writing, you start formulating your chapters, your ideas, your stories you're going to tell, or whatever, you can think of that person, and it will make it so much easier to describe what it is you're trying to do. So I think just the idea of knowing your audience ahead of time, or knowing your buyer ahead of time, because again, we're not just writing this book for no reason. We want to get buyers, and we're going to talk about exactly how to do that in a future video. That will tie it all together nicely for you. Anything to add, Brad?
No, I think that's it. I think the more granular you get at this, the better your result. So, don't. I've done this. Don't overlook this step. It's crucial, especially in a book, and like Justin said, in any product. Don't skip this step. It is more important than you realize than it may seem. It may seem like a pointless exercise if you've never done it before. Trust me when I say that it isn't. It's worth your effort.
Yep. And one little final tip that I found very helpful, and I think you've probably done this a few times as well, Brad, is when you're putting that customer avatar together, you might even want to give the person a name and actually visualize a person on the other side of the desk as you write, as you speak, as you create examples. And it just gives you, it puts you into a little bit more of a mindset of speaking to somebody who's going to receive the message. So that's a common technique that a lot of copywriters use. But
humanizes the whole thing.
It absolutely does. Yeah, it totally humanizes that experience, and will draw you closer to finding that ideal audience.
There's a bullet point right there. Humanize the experience.
There it is.
Sounds so powerful, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So that's your takeaway. Humanize the experience, and that's sort of the key takeaway here. So thanks for watching video number 1, and we'll see you in the next one.